Acrylic paints are the most versatile types of paints. However, it can be very overwhelming to choose which particular brands work for certain techniques such as blending and using certain particular techniques such as using palette knives to create awesome effects for your artworks. So in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Daler Rowney graduate acrylic paints to see whether these brands of paints are right for you. So let's get straight into this video. The first technique that we're going to be testing out is blending out these colors. So let's start off by applying the white acrylic paint, which is what I often like to use for on my artwork. And I like to use white as it's quite an ominous color, and the color that you can see is quite opaque. That's what I like about these brands of paint. They're light and bright, and they blend beautifully well together. And as you can see, that yellow fades into that white immediately straight away, and that's what I like about these brands of paint. You don't have to apply many layers in order for them to blend. And with most of my other sets of acrylic paint, I do need to go with multiple layers in order for them to blend. However, I did go with multiple layers of acrylic paint as I wanted this painting to be to pop out and stand out. That's just to make the colors a bit more opaque. That's nothing to do with blending itself. The color variety is amazing. I think these brands of paint work magnificently. However, I did need to apply a couple of layers, as I mentioned earlier, just to make the colors a bit more brighter. As I mentioned, it's nothing to do with the actual brands of paint. It's just that I like to go with a second layer of acrylic paint just to make it a bit more opaque and a bit more vibrant in my artwork. But overall, these brands of paint are brilliant, and what I would suggest for beginners, if you want to learn how to blend acrylic paints, I have created a separate video on my channel on how to blend acrylic paint, so I'll leave that in the description so you can go and watch that. But let's carry on with this video on how I test out these acrylic paints. So as you can see, these color varieties are magnificent, and the dry brush technique, as you can see, it works well with this brand of paint. I didn't actually need to use any other brand of any other sort of like technique, as you can see with this brand of paint. I didn't need to apply another layer. All I needed to do was just use a dry brush technique, which is just using a dry brush and working with my blending, working on the blending layers that need to blend properly. As you can see, we got an amazing result with these brands of paint. Now let's test out the palette knife technique. Now this is what I often like to use in my artwork to create texture in my artwork, and this technique works magnificently. As you can see, the color blend seamlessly without even having to put in any effort. Next, we're going to be trying the fan brush technique. Now, I often like to use this technique for when I'm painting trees, as I like to paint a lot of like bushes and mountains, and I want to see whether this technique works well with the fan brush technique. So as you can see, the black here is quite an ominous color. It's quite dramatic. It's quite dark, and it's quite effective. However, I do not like the green here, as it's a bit too of a bright green, which isn't perfect for like greenery. It reminds me of sort of like a turquoise green, which doesn't really fit in with the forest scene which I'm going for. But the yellow here is okay, I would say, but I'm not a big fan of the green personally. I like my other green which I have in my usual set of acrylic paints, and usually I use the Crawford black acrylic paints, which are the ones which I purchased from the works. But these weren't from the works. These were from a local art shop which is similar to the works. It's called Casa, but these were a bit more expensive. These were for like £16, but overall this technique does work, but I would suggest using a different green. Next, let's test out the sponge technique. So I often like using sponges for when I'm painting clouds. As you can see, this technique works absolutely amazing. I didn't do nothing too fancy with the background. I just painted a nice simple sunset, and as you can see, it works well with this technique. The sponge technique is magnificent. However, I did use a bit too much black in certain areas, as you can see, but this is just me experimenting with acrylic paints. This is not me trying to be too realistic with my approach. This is just me trying to experiment with these brands of paints. But overall, this technique does work well with the sponge technique. Next, we're going to be painting the Northern Lights to see how well these brands of paints work in action. As you can see, the colors blend seamlessly without having to apply much pressure on the paint. I did use a larger paintbrush, however, for this technique, just to spread out the paint a bit more and to cover a larger area more quickly and effectively. But next, we're going to be testing how well this technique paints the actual Northern Lights by painting the stars in the background. And the white here is quite opaque. So as you can see, it's quite an ominous white color, and this is what I like about this set of acrylic paint. But however, I did need to go in with a second layer, as I did in the beginning when I was testing out these acrylic paints. But that's, as I said, just to make the colors a bit more vibrant and a bit more opaque. But overall, this technique does work well with various different techniques which I have experimented for this painting, such as painting the stars in the background and painting different trees. And this technique works absolutely amazing with this brand of paints. Really, I didn't have any problems with this brand of acrylic paints. So I am going to talk a bit more about where I purchased these brands of acrylic paint. So I did purchase this from a fantastic art shop, which is Casa, which sell a diverse range of art supplies for artists to experiment with different techniques and different brushes and different tools. And they sell absolutely amazing art supplies in this art shop. I would definitely recommend going to Casa. I did go to the one in Westfield. I have actually created a video on my channel, me visiting Casa in Oxford Circus, so I will leave that in the description down below. But overall, I would say that these brands of acrylic paints are absolutely magnificent, as I've been able to, as I mentioned, experiment with various different techniques, such as splatter techniques, such as the fan brush technique, and I'm able to really have fun with these brands of acrylic paints. One of the great things I love about these acrylic paints is I'm able to apply different layers on top of each other. As you can see, the yellow goes well on top of the white, the red goes on top, goes well on top of the white, and I'm able to really blend colors seamlessly and transition colors really easily for this painting. And I'm able to apply the various layers without having any difficulties with applying these acrylic paints. So next, I'm going to be testing whether these brand of paints work well with the splatter technique. So I'm going to be experimenting with this technique in a second. I'll show you how well these brands of acrylic paints work well with these sets of acrylic paints. So I'm actually adding stalks of highlights in the corner. I'm adding a bit of white in the corner. I'm adding splashes of color just to make this artwork a bit more contrasting and a bit more opaque. As you can see, I'm able to experiment with the splatter technique very effectively in this artwork. So as you can see, I'm having no problems overlaying colors. I'm having no problems adding another layer of white acrylic paint, and I'm really able to experiment with a range of different techniques with these art brands. You can see this is how the sky turned out. It's absolutely amazing. I created an amazing galaxy painting, which has a variety of different stars and different different layers. And next we're going to be painting the trees in the foreground. As you can see, the trees I painted in this painting are absolutely amazing, as I'm able to experiment with that fan brush and able to use that fan brush effectively. I have created a separate video on my channel on how I actually created trees as well, so I'll leave that in the description as well for you to watch. So if you want to learn how to paint trees, I will leave that in the description. However, I did use watercolor for that video, but however the technique is exactly the same, so I'm able to experiment well with this technique. But overall, these sets of acrylic paint are amazing, and I would recommend these for anyone that is trying out acrylic paints for the first time, or want to buy a set of acrylic paints that are versatile with different techniques and different exercises which they want to practice with. As you can see, I came up with an amazing painting the Northern Lights with these brands of acrylic paint. So I hope you enjoyed today's video and enjoyed seeing the review of what I think of these brands of acrylic paints. Let me know in the comments what you think of these acrylic paints, and let me know which other art brands and materials you would like to see me experiment with next. But anyway, I'll see you in my next video. I hope you have a lovely day, and let me know in the comments what you think of these brands of acrylic paints.